Good evening. My name is Lawrence Scott, and I was at Star of Hope as a child. It was the summer of 1992, a few months from my 12th birthday. My younger brother and I were being raised by a single mother who at the time was in her late 40s. This was her second time raising a family, as my older siblings were adults and they had moved away. But this time proved to be more challenging. Though she initially had a decent career working downtown, she now found herself without consistent employment. She would often work temporary jobs, but that's what they were, temporary. Eventually, we moved from our spacious 3-bedroom townhome to a 2-bedroom apartment, then to a smaller apartment, to eventually we had no home at all. For the next few years, we would spend time living with a few family members as my mother tried to find some stability. My family treated us great, but it always came to that point where it was clear that we were wearing out our welcome. While living with an aunt, I remembered vividly my mother packing our bags and explaining to us that again it was time to go. You see, we had been down this path before, but this time it would be different. This time, she explained, that we would not go to another relative's home, but that we would be moving to a shelter through the Star of Hope. Now, I'm 12 years old, but I remember thinking, hope? What do you mean, hope? I just wanted to be a regular kid. What part of living in a shelter produces hope? It felt more like hopeless. You see, it was at a time in my life where I was already struggling with my identity. I was dealing with, or not dealing with, a father who had no interest in me. In fact, months before this time, I was at a grocery store, and my father, who stood in the same store, the man who shares my name, looked at me, gazed into my eyes, me expecting that this would be a moment to reunite. This man looked at me and walked past me as if I didn't even exist. My father, and now my mother, is telling me that we're moving to a shelter. Don't talk to me about hope. As we stood on the corner and the taxi arrived, I remember throwing our bags in the back of the car. I cried myself to sleep as we drove to our destination, and by the time that I had woke up, we had reached the Star of Hope Women and Family Shelter, or as I thought, a place of hopelessness. After being dropped off by the taxi, I remember walking up a set of stairs right outside of the shelter's front door. The stair climb seemed to take forever. As soon as we entered, my younger brother and I were invited to play some games. Chutes and ladders was the game of choice. Meanwhile, my mother filled out paperwork. A short time later, we were escorted to our room, and for the next few weeks, we were getting comfortable with our new living situation. Although this transition was tremendously frustrating for me, little did I know that this was the beginning of one of the most profound experiences in my entire life. It was during my stay at the shelter that we really began to thrive. There were many activities that were available for us. I even really enjoyed Bible study time. You see, I grew up in church, but for the most part, church was just a Sunday thing. My religion lasted for 2 to 3 hours and then back to normal. But during the Star of Hope stay, one of the best parts was the Bible study, because the staff and volunteers really knew how to bring the Bible to life for me. This really helped my spiritual development. For the first time in my life, I was able to go to Christian summer camps. Those experiences were life-changing. I had never experienced anything like that before. Even before going to camp, we would have to learn memory verses and Bible drills, things that help me even to this day. While at the Transitional Living Center, we were able to utilize the on-site computer lab and resource center. We would go and get help with schoolwork and have a chance to refine our computer skills. This was especially helpful to my mother, who desired to re-enter the workforce. This was also a time where she contemplated going back to college and getting her college degree. For the first time in years, my mother had support and a plan. On another occasion, I recall having the chance to visit a college campus for the very first time in my life, the University of Houston. On the campus, the Star of Hope sponsored us so that we can take karate classes, but it also gave me a time to look and think about the possibility that I could go to college after I finished high school. I remember the many volunteers who would take time out of their schedule to come serve us, whether it was a simple game of softball with the local church or Christmas with the Houston Oilers. My outlook on life had changed. My family and I not only encountered tremendous people of God who really cared about us, but a Christian environment that taught me what giving was all about. I was able to grow in my faith and set real goals for myself. As a young 12-year-old kid searching for his identity, this created a sense of value for me. I knew for certain that my identity was found in Christ, and that one day my children would know the same. My time at the Star of Hope was not hopeless at all. Rather, it was a dream come true. It was one of the greatest moments in my life. As I reflect on my time at the Star of Hope, I remember that as that taxi pulled up to my aunt's house, I remember asking God a question. I said, God, why would you allow this to happen to us? I didn't know the details as to why we didn't have stability, but I wanted answers from God. God, why would you let this happen to us? God had an answer. You see, it was at the time during the Star of Hope stay that my mother's desire to go to college would finally be realized once we transitioned back into society. And at the age of 54, she earned her bachelor's degree. It was in the moment at the Star of Hope that my encounters with people from various ethnicities taught me what God's church was supposed to look like and gave me a better understanding of my Christian faith. It was that moment on that college campus through the Star of Hope that I decided that that was the university that I wanted to go to, and I eventually graduated from the University of Houston. It was that moment in the computer lab that the staff would challenge this young 12-year-old boy and ask him to think about his future that I began to wrestle with the idea of going into finance. Maybe I can help people make good decisions with their money. It was that time in summer camp that gave me the desire to eventually leave my successful career in finance and become a youth pastor, and for summer after summer after summer, take hundreds of kids to youth camp because I knew the value in that experience. It was in those moments during Christmas when people who I didn't know would graciously give to us, that would lead me as a church planner and lead pastor of a local church in Pearland to influence our entire church, our entire congregation, to go to the Star of Hope, to adopt some families so that we can show them the same love that was shown to me. You see, it was my time being a person in need that God gave me the burning desire to serve the least of them, to serve others who are in need. The star of hope allowed me to recognize that though we were in a difficult place, God had not forgotten about us. God was using that time to grow and prepare us for a life of service. My family truly thrived in that environment, and I thank God for one of the greatest experiences in my entire life. I want to introduce to you my family, my mother, who made the decision to take us to the Star of Hope, Betty Scott. My wife, my 4 children, Eden, Kaylin, Leah, and Lauren. Thank you.